Welcome, Mark.
Thank you for having me.
What is the outlook for QSRH in 2011 and beyond?
The outlook for QSRH 2011 and beyond is one based on growth of our three brands. And we have very aggressive growth plans for the next 3 years. As with 2010, we're targeting around 40 odd stores to grow our brand within the Australian market, and 2011 at least another 45 stores across our three brands. So our key strategies for at least the next 5 years is to grow our brand penetration within the Australian market from 600 stores that we are today to close to 800, if not more. So we're very focused on that. We have very clear strategies around where each of our three brands sit and the location, if you like, and the demographic of each of those three brands, which allows us to be able to, I think, achieve those growth targets.
What do you see as the major issues the industry is facing?
I think the major challenges that the industry is facing at the moment is particularly around food labelling and obesity. Very contentious issues, I know. We're working very closely with the New South Wales Government and the industry group to ensure that we have consistency of that message. One of my great concerns about, particularly around the food labelling is, and I think really I'd like to see the federal government take a leadership role in this, is to ensure that we don't get inconsistency between states, because it's an area that is very important for us to ensure that we meet consumer demands and objectives going forward, and we're happy to work with all interested parties on that. But I think it's also an area that can be somewhat of a minefield, that if it's not done properly and it's not done in proper consultation. So I'd certainly like to see, in that particular sense, federal government taking more of a leadership role in that area, ensuring that we have consistency so that we don't get inconsistent outcomes coming across from a state by state. And with all of us, I think obesity is a major topic, and I know that our group is working very, very hard on ensuring that we have a consistent understanding for our consumers in relation to product levels in terms of fat, calorie intake, etc. And our own group is working again on a many number of projects to ensure that we meet the minimum targets going forward. One of the other challenges that we have, I think, for the industry going forward is around the ability of franchisees to access funding. In the last 18 months in particular, the banks have tightened up quite considerably in relation to the ability to lend within the franchising sector. We're starting to see some signs that they're loosening up on that area, but it's not consistent across all brands, and one of the major banks in particular we're aware of has we understand anyway, has withdrawn from funding, which only really leaves you three options left within the industry as it stands at the moment. So one of our great challenges, particularly with QSRH, is to work with our financiers to come up with some types of funding packages that will allow us to meet our growth objectives, because that's also going to be one of the I suppose hurdles that we'll face. We've got an aggressive growth plan to develop our business. We've been around for 30 odd years, and we expect to still be here for at least another 30 odd years, if not 100 years. And funding, particularly from the banks, is an important part of that growth strategy. So we're working very closely with one bank in particular to try and get that resolved. But certainly, I think from an industry perspective, I think it's one of the other great challenges that across the board that we're going to have, and I think that goes back to, in part, triggered by the number of failures that we would have had in small or less developed brands.
In a lot of ways, the past year has been quite tough for the industry. Slovakia, Hart, Krispy Kreme, all going into administration. Do you think that there's just too many choices out there for people, and there needs to be rationalisation in the industry?
Well, I can't comment on the specifics around each of those brands, because I think each of them had a completely different reason for their problems. Personally, I think there's the barriers to entry are not strong enough to prevent a number of smaller operators coming into the market. While we have legislation, we have the Franchise Code of Conduct to support that. Often franchisees can set up one store and then start franchising straight away. I mean, our group has been in existence for over 30 years. You know, we have at least 25% of our business model on corporate operation. So the needs to set up the infrastructure to support your franchise network is significant. It's costly, and compliance with, particularly in the food sector, with legislation, EHO, occupational health and safety, is very, very significant. And these are costs that I think often when people are coming into franchising, particularly in the food sector, tend to forget about. So I think I'd like to see, personally, as I said, maybe some more stringent controls around that. However, I think cash flow is king in any business, and cash flow management is something that all franchisors have to be conscious of during this period of time.
What role do the private equity players have in the day-to-day management of QSRH and its brands?
Look, we're very lucky. Quadrant Private Equity Group is very, very supportive of the QSRH group. And while they have two of their members as part of our board, there's 4 members on our board, really the board's responsible for setting the key strategies and directions of the group. And day-to-day management is left with my team, myself and my team really, as the executive group. But I know that and while they're very focused and supportive, they are really there to provide as much or as little support as we need on a day-by-day basis. They are very keen for us to reinvest back in our business, and to the extent that we have invested heavily both in the Red Rooster and the Chicken Treat brand, particularly over the last 18 months in terms of capital investment back into rebranding of both of those, and we'll continue to do that. So very supportive. I think we've been very lucky that we've had a great partner in Quadrant Private Equity, but as I said, day to day they leave that for the management team to execute the plans. So fantastic partner.
Rumours abound about their planned exit from the business. Can you confirm this? And if so, when's their intention to float?
I think there's always rumours abound about any private equity owned business about when it's going to exit. Private equity always has a structured ownership time frame, and that's somewhere between 5 and 10 years. And I think it really is driven by the market and the conditions at the time. And look, also by the performance of the business. As to when our major partner thinks it's appropriate, that's really their call. It could happen in the next 12 to 18 months. At this point in time, we carry on, run the business. We allow that up to them to make that decision. So I always expect it's going to happen. We know that from day one, but as to when that may happen, I really can't say.
Mark, Lindsay, thanks for spending time today with QSR Media.
Thank you very much.